Today, I'm very happy to introduce our visiting artist, Caleb Carithers, to you. Caleb graduated from Purdue University, actually fairly recently in August 2019, with a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering and a minor in Electronic and Time-Based Art. At Purdue, Caleb was an undergraduate researcher at the C Design Lab, led by Professor Karthik Ramani in Mechanical Engineering. After his graduation, Caleb started an internship at the New Museum of Contemporary Art in New York City, where he had responsibilities as both fabrication lab technician and temporary program coordinator. In this role, Caleb assisted the Director of Research and Technology in the world's first museum-led incubator for art, technology, and design. So very relevant to what we're doing in this class, of course, as well. Currently, Caleb is employed as a software engineer at Iterative Capital Management, and in his presentation today, he will introduce examples of his art practice, discuss experiences at the new museum, and as I hope, also tell us more about how he's balancing his artistic explorations with his career in industry. So without further ado, please help me welcome Caleb Carithers, and I'll turn it over to you, Caleb.
Awesome. Yeah, I want this to be like as casual as possible. So if anyone, say anything at any time. I'm gonna share my screen. I've had a short presentation lined up. But yeah, I'd rather this just be like us talking. So yeah, I'm Caleb. Like Professor Winkler said, I graduated last year, mechanical engineering. I didn't do much software stuff really until Professor Winkler's classes. Which really got me interested. These classes were by far my favorite. The mech stuff was fun to learn, but so much theory, and I really enjoyed making stuff. So yeah, I kind of fell in love with the course load, I guess, in EPB. As Professor Winkler said, now I'm building some software for a crypto company. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. As far as balancing that with any form of artistic practice, it's totally consumed me so far. So I have a few projects on the back burner that I really want to make, but they've really been in my back pocket for a while. So yeah, right after I graduated school, I wanted to enter this tech and art world somehow. And as you all know, it's pretty niche. You either go the full art route and try to get exhibitions into museums and really commit to that, I guess. And so I don't know, I hadn't been exposed to this idea of a creative technologist and what that was, because it's pretty hard to find that job in different places. It really mostly exists, in my opinion, in Berlin, New York, and maybe San Francisco. And even so now with COVID, I don't know, it was just extremely lucrative, but that was my goal. I wanted to be a creative technologist. And so I sent out a message to a random person at New Inc. who became a very good friend of mine. His name's Mike Kelberman. He was a creative technologist there, and essentially just helped all of the program members at New Inc. build anything they had. He ran their full lab on the top floor with they had a bunch of machining equipment, a bunch of 3D printers, a bunch of sewing machines. He kind of knew everything about everything, which is really cool. And he was just a great person to be around. The environment there was awesome though, because it was this idea of something that I got exposed to in Professor Winkler's classes, but on full steroids. This is what everyone loves to do. This is what everyone's there for. So it's awesome just to be surrounded by all these practitioners, So Immediate, Shin and Gershon from the MIT Media Lab, Tin and Ed were another duo that was really awesome. All these people are making really cool things and are there to do it for their job. That was the hardest thing for me to find, which I got exposed to there. There are opportunities for if it's some form of ad agency, which I don't know if you consider I think you can not sell out and still make money while working for an ad agency to a point. And I think Tin and Ed do that extremely well. I'll show you guys some of their work later. But I don't know, I was just trying to navigate this space of being creative and being able to make money, but also still being able to speculate with my work. So after New Ink, I was an intern there for a while, and then they started to pay me, which was great. And I did that for a bit. And then I got a creative technologist role at a small ad agency and immediately hated it, and ended up getting a job now through a friend of mine that I got connected with at the museum, Karen Wong. Actually, she's the director of the museum. And she's really great. She's really awesome, and connected me with the company that I work for now. So I guess, does anyone have any questions so far or anything? Nothing? Okay. So I guess maybe one of the most important things I've made so far is what? Can you all see my screen?
Yep, looks great. Super.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. So yeah, this is Painthead. This is something I made, I think it was 3 years ago. But essentially it was intended to be like this intervention of the user and their space. It requires the user to scream and yell to kind of try to figure out the meaning of the piece. And I don't know, this was a time where like I wasn't really sure. I don't want to say who I was because that was kind of cliche, but I was just like unsure of a lot of things and like didn't know what I wanted to do essentially. So I'm gonna scoot over and we can take a look at it. So essentially you start by clicking the start button and immediately just are presented with photos that react to you as you yell. So hopefully too many people won't look at me right now because I'm outside, but as you yell, these words start to display themselves to you. And like kind of intertwined throughout all of these like blips, I guess you could call them, are like things about my, like I really love Shel Silverstein. I don't necessarily use Microsoft Paint, but like consider myself to be like a creative person that uses technology. Essentially, as you scream, you get out this phrase, paint my head, my identity is dead. So there was the paint my, there's head, there's a comma here, just to be grammatically correct. Paint my head, my identity is dead. See, I don't know, like all these blips I just consider to be like small things about myself. And these photos were taken, I took them of my, like one of my best friends, my roommate from school. His name's Lucas. So yeah, this is Painthead. The next, I guess piece, I don't even know what to call it. This was a Twitter bot that I called news.jpg that scraped every 5 hours the top news headline, picked up the first image from Google Images from each word, and then pasted them into a collage. And it kind of created this weird, or not necessarily weird, but just like interesting juxtaposition of images that are meaningless in the context of the internet, but when combined with like, you know, this news headline, and some like, I don't know, devastating news headlines, there's just odd, I don't know what to call it. It's like, it's almost like the algorithm is being disrespectful to you, but it doesn't even know it. So I can give a few examples. And the spot stopped working. Actually, I need to pick it up. This is one of the things in my back pocket that I need to get to. But let's see, like, this one's kind of interesting. Like, Afghanistan plane crash today, 2 pilots found dead after Iranian Afghan Airlines denies Khanty province crash was its jet. And so, like, it's interesting too, like seeing how some of these images only appear here because this news headline circulated so many places. So like Trump's here because he's like just correlated with some of these things because he's the president. And like I continue to see like kind of weird, interesting examples of that. I won't spend too much time here because I think there's like more still here to be explored by myself, and this is just like the tip of it. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more to be done here. This one's kind of interesting. January 25th, almost a year ago. China coronavirus claims first doctor's life as disease spreads around the globe. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the word spreads is a bunch of bread with spread on them. Yeah, like I said, like I don't know. There's more to be said, and I think to be done here. But like mainly, I wanted this to be like some weird collaboration between like the culture, the news, and the internet. Yeah. So the next one I want to talk about is wordplay, which was kind of a similar theme almost, except this was more about a collaboration with the computer. In it, the user speaks a word. That word is then broken down to any other words the letters in that word can form. All those words are saved and then are just used to build random sentences. And most of the time, most of the sentences are gibberish, but sometimes there's some meaning that evolves, which I think are like the really interesting points. So we can play with that one. Yeah. Library. Destroy. Freedom. Explosion. Manipulate. Release. Exclude. Trying to think of more words. But like as you can see, some like random sentences start to form, and like as you continue to interact with the system, I think you start to find more meaning, and maybe even find more meaning since you've been there longer. Like I don't know, I think there's kind of a lot of weird things that are at play. This is another one of those projects that I think has more potential, but has just kind of been on the back burner. Okay, and this was Balloon Noise. This is actually from class 1 year. It was essentially like I wanted to make some form of like portable instrument that was also not necessarily an exhibition, but like was reactive, I guess. Like most of these interactive exhibitions are like extremely static and you can be in one place, and this was like somewhat portable. You could strap it to your backpack if you wanted. And I've got a video, but essentially you touch the balloon cords, they light up, make some noises that react to a particle system that's painted onto the screen. And I kind of wanted to go like more in an instrument route, but getting these pieces of tinfoil to react was kind of like finicky. There are better ways to do it, but that's what I did in the crunch. Oh, did that crash? No. Cool. One of the next things I've done, and I don't have really great documentation for this, which I hate, it's come to haunt me a few times already, was a collaboration with one of the program manager at New Inc. Actually, her name's Alex Darby, and it was really awesome. She was also a jewelry maker and kind of like a speculative jewelry maker, and just like also enjoyed like interactive experiences. Like she worked at New Inc. and was really into all of the work and stuff. So her and I like collaborated on this small exhibition, I guess you could say, at New York Jewelry Week, where she had all of her jewelry lined up on this wall, which I also don't have a picture of. I really blew this one, to be honest. But there was this phone that I made that had a Raspberry Pi inside that as you picked up the phone, you were prompted by someone with a question, and they're like random questions. So it'd be like, what's your favorite piece of jewelry? Like, what piece of jewelry means the most to you? When the user responded, the phone, or the Raspberry Pi really, but the phone transcribed and turned to text the voice and then pushed to a website, so you could see like all the responses from everyone. And it was kind of this cool twist on like what a normal jewelry exhibition could be, and was kind of like unifying, not unifying, but it was just interesting to see everyone's responses. And you kind of have this common thing of like jewelry can mean more to people. And then actually this past week, for New York Jewelry Week 2020, we kind of did an extension of this, but it's only web-based. And I'm not sure if my audio is going to work right now, but essentially, if you guys go to this link called thejewelryphone.com, we kind of just tried to emulate a phone in the browser. So you click in this box and you hear like a dial tone. As you type, you hear phone noises. It rings. Someone picks up eventually.
Two whimsical, pillowy forms.
And then a description of a piece of jewelry from a few artists that submitted work is described to you in your ears over audio, which is kind of interesting, like how art adapts to the world in like this time of coronavirus. And like, I don't know if you can necessarily even call this art, but I don't know. Normally we probably would have done something in person, but yeah, I don't know. The world's just like a different weird place now. This is a small piece from class, actually. I think this is the processing assignment, maybe. Essentially, my idea was I wanted to emulate what it'd look like to make a decision, which I'm not sure how well this captures that, but you go through all these tubes and essentially just like end at a unifying point. Not necessarily symbolizing that your decisions don't matter, but like most of your decisions will lead you to a single place, I guess is my point. One thing that I've really been interested in as well and have been like wanting to get to is this idea of clickbait and what it is and why we have it, and like why are we attracted to it? Because it has the shock factor. Because like some of these images are just like extremely random, but I think there's something more to be said about culture and like why these are targeted towards us. So I don't know, I haven't taken this very far, but all I've done so far is build like a web scraper to pull out clickbait images from like Taboola and there's one other, but there's like two pretty big companies that make all of these clickbait ads that you see at the bottom of like Business Insider and like all these random websites. This is something I really want to like explore more and do with, because I think there's some interesting things here conceptually. Oh, okay, yeah, and then so what I do now. So like I said, Karen Wong introduced me to a guy named Chris Bannon, who she knew through New Ink. Actually, he was an advisor. Also, I guess I can talk more about New Ink. Like the way the program works is artists and practitioners apply to the program. They get accepted and then move to New York and work out of 231 Bowery, which is right next to the new museum. And so New Ink provides a space for them to work. They provide programming, they provide community equipment, as well as like kind of connections into the industry. They're pretty like well connected to people throughout the art world or through, I don't know, many different industries. Like some of the advisors, one of them was like the founder of Fake Love, which was bought by the New York Times, but recently actually they stopped everything, which is pretty sad. But needless to say, like they're just pretty well connected. And so I lost my train of thought. Long story short, anyways, I got connected to a guy who has a crypto company essentially, and have just been building software there, which has consumed me, sadly. Part to blame because he introduced me to software pretty much entirely. Yeah, and that's all I had.
All right, very cool. Thank you very much, Caleb.
Yeah.
Let's see, and we can open it up for questions now, since this was pretty much a straightforward presentation. You said you wanted to actually engage more of a conversation or discussion, so I think we definitely have some time to do that now and see if there's any questions or any comments, any feedback from the rest of the class. Anyone?
I'd love to hear what you all are working on as well, if no one does. Oh, Jasmine, yeah, go ahead.
Question. I know you said you went to New York for your job, basically. Are you from New York? Are you from Indiana?
No, I'm actually from South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how did you go about, like, once you knew you were graduating and kind of what you wanted to do, how did you go about, like, finding a job like that? Because, like, what your job is kind of like what I want to do. And
Nice.
I have nothing for where, so I'm just kind of wondering how you went around to look for something like that.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I really had struggled just to find any opportunity, like in engineering even. So I was just open to anything, including not being paid, which is horrible, and I think shouldn't exist. But unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, was the way that I kind of got into New Ink. I just like emailed a guy at that point. You know, I didn't know anybody, and was just like, I'm really interested in the work that's happening here. Like, I think art and technology is really interesting. Can I come work here for free? And he was like, sure. So that's how it started. And then just, you know, met a bunch of people there. And then eventually, like, they kind of liked me, I guess, and hired me as the receptionist. And then started to pay me a little bit of money, not very much, but, you know, something livable. But like, there really are, and that was kind of, I don't know, like, there definitely are other opportunities, though, for creative technology in general. Like I was saying, like, I was kind of more focused on just an art aspect, but a lot of ad companies in specific have like creative tech programs. One company in particular that does a lot is Droga 5. I kind of got connected to some of their tech people there, but they kind of make cool like interactive tech things for ad campaigns. Like they made an Angry Birds like punching machine, which you approach and like beat up, and it gives you like some output. So I think it like kind of depends on like where you want to take it. Like if you want a strong job and like, you know, want to make money and be able to support yourself, there are ways to do it that still include like technology and making like weird, cool things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you put that name into the chat, Caleb,
please? Oh, yeah.
I already forgot it actually, but I think it would be good if somebody wanted to look it up.
Yeah, so here's New Ink. I'll put in a few that come to my mind. There's Hush Studios, which is like kind of advertising, but like I feel like a bit less looked at as selling out. Like, or not selling out. I don't know if I keep saying that, but like I don't know, maybe more well respected. Like more well respected to people that I talked to in New Ink. Like most people I talked to at New Ink were like, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to work at Droga, and they'd be like, you're selling out, like you're going to hell. Or not like you're going to hell, but like, I don't know, kind of has a certain connotation if you work in the advertising industry, I guess. Yeah, some of these places are blanking right now.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Also feel free to type into the chat, of course, since we opened that possibility.
Hi, I have a quick question. So I'm actually a senior in ME as well, also pursuing a minor in art.
Nice.
So I'm like especially curious about like what classes you took in college, both like in ME or in art or any other elective that you took that kind of is still relevant to your work today. And also I want to hear more about your experience with working for Professor Ramani.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so to be honest, I use none of my ME coursework at all. Surprisingly enough, most people I know don't actually. But I definitely still think it was like important for me to do. Like I said, I really like enjoyed and like I think I value Professor Winkler's classes the most because um, they combine like this technical aspect as well as like challenge you to think more about what you're making and why you're making it. Whereas, you know, engineering, you're just memorizing things and trying to apply logic. So I thought that was really cool. And it was like where I really got interested and like introduced to software. Meanwhile, I was doing the C design lab work, which is great. I think Professor Ramani is like really, really awesome. They have some cool things going on there. They're also not afraid to work you if you're willing to work, which I think is good. But I worked with Terrell Glynn there actually. We wrote a few papers together. One made it into Kai last year. And it was for this project called Story Maker, which was pretty cool. It was kind of like ties pretty well to like some of the work that happens in Professor Winkler's classes too. But essentially we're building the story building toolkit where kids could put together these cardboard toys. There's an AR aspect where you can control an AR character to interact with these physical objects. So there's this cool interaction kind of between AR and the real world. So like you control an AR character and walk it over to a catapult that's like this, you know, mechatronic catapult that would then fire. Pretty awesome. But even then, like, I don't want to tie it all back to jobs, but like, none of that seemed to help find a job for me, at least. I think some people maybe have different experiences, but for me, it was like really just like reaching out to people and be willing to do, just like be willing to like meet a stranger and like not even ask them for a job, but just like be willing to talk to people. Because I've had the most success with that. Like even when I got to New York first and didn't have the Newing thing, I just like constantly emailed like random people that were in art and technology and just asked them if they'd be interested in meeting. And like was extremely surprised in the amount of people that say yes. Or you have like some weird random connection that like your sister's friend worked with this one guy. And that's how I got like introduced to the people at Droga. Actually, it's like this random connection. And then once you're kind of like get into that, you figure out how small of a circle it is and that like all of these people know each other. Which is like, I don't know, I just didn't expect that from the outside. I guess I kind of thought it was this like weird mystical world that was like impossible, but it's not. Like, you know, everyone's just a person.
Really cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So also, if anybody would like to share thoughts about, you know, their own work, if you wanted to talk to Caleb about what you're working on right now, I thought I remember hearing Caleb asking a little bit about that as well, since we're all now in final production mode from the last assignment, the final assignment for this class. So fire away if you feel like sharing. Probably feels too much like a critique then already, or probably.
I'm just well, I guess here this is better. Like maybe if I ask questions, how many projects are you all in? Like, is there one final project left, or is there more than one? There's one left.
Yeah, so we've started out. It's and I remember you were in 326 at some point a while back, right? I think you've taken that class. So we started out pretty similarly with some experiments in processing and, you know, the line work, interactive line, and working with processing and computational aesthetic. and then switched gears and did a project for project number 2 was actually working with Arduino and introducing everybody to physical computing, circuit design, interactivity using sensors and responses to actuators. And then in the last project, I kept it deliberately open. We did some more workshops on incorporating both processing and Arduino so that they can start talking to each other. And that could be a direction for students to work in, but I also left it open and said if somebody wanted to revisit one of the previous project ideas, either in processing or just Arduino alone, or even like a theme or topic that they found especially interesting in their previous work, they could do that too for the last assignment now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. And then I guess all critiques happen through Zoom as well?
Everything through Zoom, yeah. There's nothing in person this semester, so it's, I think, for all of us, pretty new territory to explore. But it's going extremely well, and so I was glad that you mentioned. And in fact, one of our previous speakers, Yagis, brought up the same issue of documentation. And I think one of the things that is maybe hard initially, but it's, I think, a really good lesson even for everything else that comes after this class, is that when we do these things online, things need to be documented. Everything needs to be documented so we can immediately exchange it online and we can immediately discuss it. So there's no more winging it, that you just quickly bring something to class and you just, you know, make something up, but it has to be already in the documentation form when it gets to the critique stage. And so that's, I think, something really important. And I've emphasized that, and we're also practicing documentation skills as we go along. So what is helpful? Do we use voiceover? Do we use different camera angles? You know, close-up shots explaining details versus showing the overall view of the project, talking about sculptural components, static qualities, but also interaction scenarios and so forth, meaning all of these things. And so I think, especially with the jewelry phone that you brought up, again, these situations that you, and I myself, I'm in the same boat, that I feel like looking back at my work, there are some pieces I wish I'd just done a better job of documenting it, because later on it's just so important to have this documentation. And I always tell the story that it's usually, it's only 10% of all the people that see your work see it actually in the gallery and see it in person. 90% see it as in form of a documentation through your portfolio, on your application, on your website, and so forth. So documentation is really important.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just always like the last thing I want to do. So I tend not to do it.
Right.
But it's horrible when you fall into situations like this too. And like Alex, the woman I had made this with, like asked me for, like, I deprecated the site and I forgot the database was running on that server, and she was like asking me for all of the work, and like I had backed up nothing, I had documented nothing, and I was like, there is a copy on the hard, like in the Raspberry Pi itself, like all of the audio files were saved, and that's like our last copy of anything. So I kind of learned my lesson there.
Yeah, one of my professors back in Germany, actually, he made a good comment once. He said, you know, if you're ever in an exhibition, if you're ever so lucky that you have a gallery show or a museum exhibition, before you even open the door to the general audience, the whole work needs to be already documented in the space as it was set up. And then you can basically open it up, and you don't care anymore what's happening. You can, you know, still shoot more documentation if you want to. You can do documentation with the people in the space or without, but you're sure that you have everything already documented for your portfolio afterwards.
Nice. I like that. I'm just continuing to like drop random people into the chat.
That's great.
Of like New Ink practitioners or just like companies, random places. A lot of people at New Ink like did take like interns, or like were looking for people to help them, and like would also contract out work. So I don't know, like the opportunities are there. They're just like pretty niche, and you have to like be willing to, you know, try to get them. They're not going to come to you necessarily.
But it's really encouraging to hear that even like a cold call, like just contacting somebody and saying, hey, here I am, this is what I'm interested in. Do you have anything for me, or do you have, you know, a place where I can start? That works actually, or in your case, it actually turned out really great. So, and then once you're in with one foot in the door, then you make these other connections, and so one thing leads to the next, and that was really successful.
Yeah, exactly. And just like asking people about their work as well. Like people love to talk about themselves, I think, in general. So like a lot of work of people's work was interesting, and like I think showing interest helps as well. So yeah.
What would you say in terms of your skill set was really helpful in a place like New Inc?
I think like being technically well versed is like pretty important. A lot of people there were, I don't know if anyone was extremely well at any one thing. That kind of tends to be a theme, I think, like in creative tech in general, because no one's, you know, like trying to be the best at this one technical skill, but people are just trying to do these things to, you know, get their ideas to life. But like everything that I think I learned in your class, which was mainly just being open to learning new technologies, and once you are like not being afraid to dive into them, maybe, and like really just not letting your current technical know-how or capabilities like inhibit what any ideas, I guess, or any projects. Like that was something I saw there. Like they didn't really care what it took to be done. They just said I could do it, and they did it. Like I think one of the biggest examples I can think of is Shin and Gershon from Slow Immediate launched a tooth to space, which is like kind of crazy. But yeah.
All right. Any other questions or?
I have
thoughts?
another question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I'm just wondering, like after graduation, did you know that art and technology is something that you want to like dive head first into? Do you ever consider going a more like traditional like engineering route and like doing this on the side? And like, do you think that it's like that's a possible route to like get your foot through the door, or like the only way that you can get your foot through the door is to like spend all of your time on looking for art and technology gigs?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I really tried I don't know, like I did IR, I did like kind of all the normal like engineering things and never really got anywhere. Like I got interviews and stuff, and like always knew I was more interested in kind of like interaction and art and tech. So eventually I was like forget it, like the engineering stuff, like I can probably get a job at some point if I really need to or want it. But like I'd rather try this other thing that I think I'm more interested in. So at that point I was like, yeah, like let's go for it all the way. This is all I'm gonna do. And then just kind of like fell into the New Ink thing, which then just like really kind of opened it all up. Yeah, it's like it's a hard decision. Like there's a balance to be had, I think. I just like wouldn't feel like it's like a end of the world decision. For me, it kind of, for some reason I felt like that. Like if this doesn't work, then I'm gonna die or something. And that's never true. Yeah. And like, yeah, I don't know. Even then, like, I feel like I never really got to the spot I wanted to be, where, like, you know, you're making an income that can support yourself in New York City and also like do interesting work. I kind of like started to fall more in love with the technical side of things and just like enjoyed software in general, and that's kind of how I ended up here on that.
Cool, thank you. And this is for my own like curiosity more than anything, but how's life in New York City, and also how's the art scene during COVID?
Yeah, so I'm actually not there right now. I moved to Austin, Texas. I jumped out of New York like right when COVID hit. So my girlfriend and I were in like a very extremely small apartment, and we're both working from home. So we went back home to South Carolina for a bit, and then just moved to Texas 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I'm not sure. My sister's actually there now, and I think some things are open, but I think the new museum actually is back open. They were closed for a while.
Cool, thanks.
So, but I hope, I mean, once COVID clears and there seems to be some silver lining on the horizon, but Austin, Texas seems to be the place to be if you're interested in culture and the music scene and the arts, right? So there are some really great venues there for exploring.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. I think at this point we can end our official meeting with Caleb, and I would like to thank Caleb one more time for his presentation and for being here with us today. Again, as we did with our other guests before, I also asked Caleb, and he's happy to hang around for just a few more minutes longer, and we can continue our discussions more informally as well for maybe 5 or 10 more minutes if somebody's interested in that.